Well, I've got this sheet, and this. You know what that means. So here's the basic idea. I'm going to take this bottom sheet of leather, I'm going to use this as kind of a backer, and then I'll take the top one and put it just like that. I think what I'll do is I'll just wet mold that around the pistol. And to do that, well, you know what we use. Let me go ahead and grab the old saran wrap. Let's wrap up the pistol and get to molding. If you've never seen me do this before, it's a pretty simple process. We stretch out the saran wrap, we rip off a big piece, we take the pistol, roll it up in the saran wrap, and there we go. Perfect mold for our holster. We don't waste leather, so I cut that larger piece down to size. It gives me plenty left over to mold around the pistol with enough around the edges for sewing. We soak the leather for about 45 seconds and get to molding. We lay out the pistol and slowly but firmly begin molding the leather around the edges. The holster is beginning to take shape. Let's let this dry overnight. After about 8 hours, the leather has completely dried, and as you can see, it's taken the perfect form of that pistol. This one here fits right back in. We're good to go. We have a lot of excess leather here, so let's begin to design this down to our final finished shape. With this type of free flow, each design is unique. Now I'm going to need that back panel, so before we move on, let's get that sketched out. I'll kind of start here at the top, move around the pistol, give myself plenty of room, bring my lines something like this, kind of around here, and you get the basic idea. The pattern for the back panel is cut out. Time to trim down the molded section to make sure everything fits. We'll just stay on our pencil lines here. Use a nice sharp knife. Everything should work out just fine. So we'll do another test fit here with the pistol on the pattern and then the molded section in place. I have to do a lot of trimming here still. And I don't know if I really like how much there is on this side. So we're going to trim this down. Mark this kind of something along the lines here. Bring it down to the edge of the molded section. Something like that. That ought to work. Maybe adjust it here on this other side as well. See this line across here? I'm going to cut that part off. I measured to the end of the barrel of the pistol, so everything is going to fit nice and snug. With that trimmed off, we're going to make some additional adjustments. With that all trimmed off, the molded part is going to fit a lot better. Get it all lined up exactly where I want it. And it's time to start doing some additional marking on here. This is where I'll put my belt slots. I'll have one on this side, obviously, and then I will have one on this side. And looking at the size of this thing, I think I'm still going to trim it down right across here and on this side as well. I've said it in other videos, but I'll say it again here. Never be afraid to adjust your project on the fly. It's going to make you happier with the end result. So this is my end design. Time to get the back panel finally cut out. Obviously, the first step is transferring the pattern to the leather. And once it's cut out, we can align everything and begin to get an idea of our final fit. The back panel is going to be doubly thick, so that requires you to cut a separate piece that's the exact opposite of your first piece. So I've got all three pieces here, as you can see. We'll take the original back panel, and then with our top panel, just like that, See the thickness on there? And then everything should align just like that. That's the type of fit that I'm looking for. I want a retention strap on this, so I'll mock this up with a piece of paper. It's going to come through here something like this. This is what I'm thinking of. Right across the handle, and it'll snap down right on this other side somewhere, right around in here. That ought to work. Let's get that cut out. To make the retention strap work the way I want it to, I cut this slot in my top part of the back panel, and it's going to sit just like this. So the strap will come through between the two panels. That way it'll be hidden. The pistol will sit in here just like this. Line everything up exactly where I want it. And then it'll come across like that. We'll trim everything down here in a little bit. Once I've committed to the positioning of my strap, I knocked in a stitch line. I've glued it into place temporarily before I stitch it. And again, I'll show you how this is going to fit through here. Just like that. And there you go. That way I'll have nothing across the back except for that tiny little stitch spot. It's time to start knocking in my stitch line for the molded section. So I traced this onto this top back panel so I know exactly where that's going to go back to. I don't want to lose that at this point. Now I can work with this, mark in my stitch lines, and get everything taken care of. As you can hopefully see here, I've already grooved the stitch line. That's where it's going to sit. All I got to do is grab the chisels and knock those holes into place. I also decided to use a couple of these cool rivets that I had, and I'm going to have to set those into place before I stitch. It's just a matter of popping in some holes and setting all my rivets. I've committed to where my stitch lines are going to be. All my rivets are in place, so I used some leather cement to glue the molded section to the top back panel. That's why I drew those pencil lines around the molded section onto that back panel. That way I did not lose exactly where that was supposed to be lined up, so I knew where to glue without getting into any section that I didn't want to. Now I'll be able to knock in my stitch line through the molded section and through this top section of the back panel, but not going all the way through into the back section of the back panel. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is what I was referring to. I've got my stitch lines all knocked in, all chiseled, and it's just going through this top panel. I can now work with this and then sew the two back panels together at a later time. The stitch line's in. I used a basic saddle stitch on that. I think it turned out really good. Very smooth all the way around. And now it'll line up with the other panel. We will slip the retention strap through there like that. And it's looking like everything's going to line up just the way I want it to. But before finally attaching the two back panels together, I had to put that snap in for the retention strap. Goes through there. Turned out pretty good. I'll cut off all the excess there in a couple minutes. But this way, that snap will not be able to be seen on the very back of the holster. The retention strap's been cut to length, rounded off at the end, and both of the back panels have been glued together. Now I just need to go around and set my stitch line, keep moving on. Stitch line set all the way around. Both panels are now sewn together. Again, just used a basic saddle stitch on that. Everything is lining up fairly well. I will still need to go around all the edges with a razor, trim off any excess. But so far, it's coming along pretty good. Let's do a test fit because, as I always say, when you're working on a custom project, test fits are everything. You got to do them at every step of the project. Here we go. Seems to fit in perfectly. Let's keep moving. Everything's trimmed down. My slots have been cut in for the belt. Time to get this thing under dye. I used a light brown Biebing's dye on this. I hit a top coat of antiquing on it. Think it's looking pretty sharp so far. Not buffed up yet. Take a look at the back here. You can see that all we can see through this is the one little stitch section there. Everything's looking good. Let's do another quick test fit here. Now you'll be able to see how the pistol looks contrasting against the dye. There we go. It's time to get this thing buffed up. We will slick all the edges, and then this project will be just about finished. So it's all buffed up with some leather balm and atom wax on there. All the edges have been finished and slicked. I don't do edge coats on something like this, so you won't see that. Let's go outside and I'll give you a quick shot of what this holster looks like when I'm wearing it. Well, the proof is in the final fit, and this holster ended up with everything that I wanted when I started this project. The back panel completely surrounds the handle so that it's not going to be poking me in the side. I hate holsters that allow the handle of the pistol to poke me in the side. It also cants the pistol slightly forward due to those belt loops. That worked out perfectly. Fit and finish, I wouldn't hesitate to wear this anywhere. Thanks for hanging out with me today. You were part of this design from the beginning all the way to the very end. And I hope this video gave you some ideas of how to make your own holster. If it did, well, you know what to do. And maybe, just maybe, I'll see you on the next video. If you enjoy videos about the randomness of our amazing world, consider clicking on the globe to subscribe, or maybe checking out one of the other videos right here.